Interest in college football recruiting seems to be going down around the nation, but this absolutely should not be the case for Boston College football fans.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. I'm so excited to talk about today's show. If you've not checked this out before, we are a daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I hope you hit that subscribe button before you leave. On today's show, we're going to talk about anonymous ACC coaches talking about the BC Eagles. What were some of the takeaways? I'll tell you what those look like. I'm going to tell you two visitors that you need to get pumped about for the first official visit weekend of the season. And there's this new malaise going around with college football recruiting. I'll talk about what that malaise looks like and why it really shouldn't impact Boston College at all. So let's kick it off. Now, I saw on Twitter a lot of talk going around with this new House settlement going on that, college football recruiting has changed. And that's absolutely true. With NIL and the transfer portal, it's changed quite a bit. The way that coaches set up their teams and do things has changed. I mean, look at what Indiana just did with their roster. Basically, they just took an entire transfer portal and just made their entire roster out of those transfer portal players. And they made the playoffs with it. So you can see why some coaches might want to do that. Now, the argument is why their fans are losing interest in the portal is, well, I'm going to fall in love with, or I'm going to really get interested and engaged with this player, and then they leave. They play for 2 years and they go. And I get that. I totally understand why a school that, you building up these players and they leave, why fans may be like, you know what? I don't care about recruiting anymore because I'm not going to get engaged with these guys. They're all mercenaries at this point, right? Well, I think for Boston College, and I think other teams will slowly come along. I think this view is not accurate for BC. While schools like Miami, Colorado, Indiana, Texas, like many of these schools are building a good chunk of their roster from the portal, Boston College is not. When you look at the roster next year, there are going to be players that are from the portal, but they're not going to be the 1-year renter players. You're going to have Ty Lockwood for 3 years. You've had Grayson James for multiple years. You're going to have Dylan Lonigan for 3 years. It's basically like getting freshmen with these kids. So you can engage with those players. But look around at the rest of the roster. Jude Bowery, recruited. Lewis Bond, recruited. You look at the defense. KP Price, recruited. Quintavious Hutchins, recruited. Quan Williams, recruited. Davion Crouch, recruited. Special teams. Andy Quinn, recruited. Luca Lombardo, recruited. The way BC is structuring their roster should make following recruiting important for BC, because BC is not losing a ton of guys to the portal, and they're not bringing in a ton of guys in return. You have pieces here and there, but you've always had that. You have a little bit more now, but look at what Jeff Hafley had when he started. He had, Jalen Gill, Phil Dracovic. You go back to Steve Adazio, he had Tyler Murphy, Patrick Tolles. Like, you can go on and on with the guys that they've brought in. I mean, Zion Johnson, Adazio brought in, he was a transfer. So, yes, BC brings in a few more now, but the bread and butter for this roster is recruiting. And you look at the last few years in terms of, getting engaged with the guy and then watching him leave. Who is the only guy that really left a bad taste in your mouth? That'd be Tommy Castellanos, right? And that was a whole other thing. He just quit. He just quit, right? Like, that was a whole different thing. You look at the last few years, and guys that have left, none of the players that you've lost, Ryan Turner maybe, have been all that important. Jerron Bradley, Jaden McGowan, Jacoby Robinson. These are all like guys that just didn't work out. And that's okay to lose those guys. But you're not losing the heart of your program. You're recruiting and developing guys, and you're keeping them here. Bill O'Brien has been crowing about this. And he's right. He's right about this. The guys that they're keeping here, they're bringing in are the guys that they're keeping. The guys that they want to keep here, they're keeping here. And you're going to lose a few guys. You know what? At the end of every year, there's going to be players that just aren't working out, that are not going to see the field, that are going to hit the portal. But if I asked you who these players were and why you liked them, you would never be able to tell me what they were. You look at a wide receiver like Montrell Wade. Like, what did you know about him? Right? Like, he entered the portal because he was never going to play. Not a knock on the kid, but that's just the way things work, right? He goes to find a new home. He finds a new a place. I think he's at a community junior college, a JUCO now. But the players that you want to develop are staying. So you should care about recruiting, because these players that you're bringing in if they work out, are going to stay here in most cases. If they land a Marky Walbridge or a Carter Gooden, or they keep a Mason Leak, these guys are going to be the bread and butter of this program. This program is never going to do what Miami did with like bringing in Carson back to really like, and Cam Ward in back-to-back years. That's just not what BC is. They instead are going to bring in recruits and transfers that you can have for a while. And that's the way it's going to work. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I disagree. You can still be skeptical until they sign on the dotted line. I know I write about recruiting, and some of you guys, you see me write a report about a guy committing, and you're like, I'm not going to get excited until he commits. That's a little different. I get that. Like, there is a healthy skepticism for some of you about a guy that just commits before he signs. I get that you want to see him get here. And there's guys that are in the class of 26, 27 that are committed now that I would bet you someone's going to probably decommit at some point or flip or whatever. It's just the world that we live in there. But I'm saying the players that commit here, sign the dotted line on National Signing Day, and get here. Those National Signing Days for BC fans should be bigger than they are right now. And with the class that you're looking at right now, and the guys that you have possibly coming in, National Signing Day should still be a big event. Recruiting classes should be still important. And so when you hear that, for Boston College, it's a different beast. Recruiting does matter at BC. It does not mean that transfer portal is going to take over everything for Boston College. It never will. So I think that you should still watch this next month with official visit season. The potential for big-time names to come here, guys that Bill O'Brien and his staff can develop. This month is going to be crucial. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you 2 names that should get you excited that are coming this weekend. I'll tell you all about them in just a moment. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. I mean, look at this Pacers-Knicks series. I just saw someone, I think it was someone in the NFL Network, bashing the Knicks in the middle of Game 3, and I'm going, dude, those Knicks are going to come back. And you go on the FanDuel, you can get those live odds as they go along. You can pick that up. Because FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play and win big. You like the Knicks? You like the Pacers? Boom. The odds are right there. You can go live during the game. You could pick point spreads. You could pick points per game for a play. You think, Brunson's going to score 20 points plus? You can get the odds. It's so easy to use. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. And as I've been telling you, this upcoming month is going to be huge for BC. Now, as I said, I have the option to go to 3 days a week. I doubt I'm going to do it because June is so important for BC. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And if you want to get a more conference ready approach, check out Locked On ACC. They're going to have their squad up on our YouTube channel, but you can check out 5 days a week of ACC content with Alex Donald and Kenton Gibbs. Make sure you check that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, we're talking about official visit season. This is when the coaches wine and dine high school students, which seems weird, but we're talking about it. And I want to talk to you about there's over a dozen players coming. And there's players that have huge offer lists, there's players that don't. I have two names that I am looking at that have me excited. These are our recruits that I think are big deals, and they're for a variety of reasons. So I want to tell you the two that I really am looking forward to seeing on campus. The first has to be Jaden Williams. Jaden Williams, which we've had three Jaden Williams now. It's JA''DYN from Washington, Ohio, Washington High School in Ohio. He's rated an 87. He's a linebacker. BC got in on this kid at just the right time. He is a 6'2", 205-pound linebacker. He's a linebacker. He's not a safety making the change to linebacker. You want to rebuild your linebacking room. This is the perfect addition to go with Sakari Thomas, Griffin Collins, and the other linebacker, Steve Klein. So Jaden Williams, he for most of his junior year, he goes under the radar. He starts to make visits his spring during the winter. He checks out BC, he gets an offer. He checks out UVA, he gets an offer. He checks out Indiana, he gets an offer. Impressive kid. This is a kid that I think is very well regarded. Now he has, as I just mentioned, those schools, 3 official visits set up. He starts with BC, goes second to Virginia, and then he ends with Indiana. Now I'm saying I'm excited because he's an excellent player. And really, if you want to build this linebacker room, which you have to do, like this linebacker room, you added in Jason Hewlett out of the transfer portal. I talked about transfer portal. There's a kid that can play for a whole bunch of years. You added in Sakari Thomas, who hasn't joined campus yet, but you need to add some more depth. Like you're doing such a good job at some of these other positions. One more linebacker would really make a big difference. Jaden Williams would be a big one. Now, I look at his official visits. As I said, BC, Virginia, Indiana. Ending with Indiana. No pressure to the BC staff here, but you got to make sure when it comes to Sunday or Monday, he's one of those names that you get that earn it tweet from Spencer Dickow, because you do not want to let him get to Indiana. He's a kid that you need to get before he leaves campus. Virginia doesn't worry me. Honestly, anything Virginia at this point, I feel like whatever, because that staff is 1 year away from getting blown up. So I'm not worried about Virginia. Good academic school, football program, I still think is kind of a mess. But Indiana, they're cooking with smoke right now, or cooking with fire, excuse me. And I feel like with the Big Ten money, with winning, with making the playoffs, with Kurt Signetti being so high up, up that coaching staff, you can't let him get there. You got to get him before this. So to me, Jaden Williams is one I am excited because he's a good player, but one I cannot wait to see if they can make him, before he gets on that plane, commit to BC. We'll have to wait to see what happens, because the way official visits work, for most cases, the way that the commitment works for BC at least, and a lot of other schools are this way too. Not the Blue Bloods. Blue Bloods just kind of let everything happen. But for BC, if he commits, he's going to be most of the time they require him to cancel his other official visits. So if he commits, the expectation is he won't make a commit. He won't make a visit to Indiana. So go get him. I know the staff has done a good job with him so far. Now, the second name, the other name that I'm really pumped about for this recruiting weekend is Jermaine Polk. Jermaine Polk is a 6'4" defensive tackle from St. Francis de Sales in Toledo, Ohio. Now, this is another kid who had a huge winter. Like under the radar. He would have been one of those kids that you asked me, like, AJ, why are people excited about him? He has no offer list. And then you turn around and boom, every Midwest school is offering him other than Ohio State. Like, really, his recruiting calendar, starts at BC. Next weekend, he goes to Wisconsin. The weekend after that, he goes to Iowa State. The weekend after that, he ends up in Iowa. That is as Midwest of a group of visits as you can get. Now, he as well, I believe he's an 88. So he's like way up there in terms of 3 stars. BC needs a ton of talent on that defensive tackle line. I think they're going to a defensive tackle position. I think Mac Fitzgerald will probably move into there, but and there may be some other guys that they've had commitments from that may also switch over. I don't think like Dom Funk would, but there's other guys. Jermaine Polk would be an amazing get. And again, this is another guy. When you look at the schools that he's going to, can you get him to commit before he takes any other visits? You have to blow him away in Chestnut Hill. Like, get him in there. Show him what Boston's about. Show him what kind of education he's going to get, what being a Boston College Eagle is all about, and make sure that he says, you know what? I've seen everything I need to see. I'm not even going to check out those other schools. That is what makes this such a big deal. And I think, it's going to be a tough pull for him. I look at those other schools, but that's the beauty of official visit weekend. I said this on yesterday's show. It's one of the hardest. Like I could tell you from just, covering recruiting, when there's guys that they're interested in, I can usually gauge when there's a guy that they're interested in that they're going to land. But these kids are interested in a whole bunch of other schools. They're in many cases they may not, you may not, unless you are just like in it with those recruits, you may not know who their top recruit, like who their top school is, because they hide it so well. So it could be a surprise. Like, you could go to Sunday is usually, if you come to Eagle Insider, that's the time to look. Maybe there's a Jermaine Polk. Maybe there's a Jaden Williams. There's a lot of if you want to go on Eagle Insider, check it out. The list of defensive players coming this weekend is really impressive. They've got a few good offensive weapons coming. They got a couple wide receivers. I don't think they have any running backs coming this weekend, but you look at who they got coming on that defensive side, and you like what you see. You like what they've got, what they got brewing there. So these are two: Jaden Williams, Jermaine Polk. Will they be easy gets for a school like BC? You heard the schools I told you that they're also looking at. I think Jaden Williams is a much more realistic first week commitment. We'll have to wait to see. The other piece that we're going to have to hear about, some recruits just get blown away and they'll recruit right on the spot. Other will take all 4 visits. They'll sit on it. We'll wait till July. They'll set a date. They'll make their commitment, but they won't tell you when that commitment happens. You wait for the graphic. And then, you're in middle of August before you hear it. So I'm going to warn you ahead of time. There may be, I'm going to tell you right now, there may be a Polly Walnuts tweet for me. If you don't know what that means, that's the BC landed a commitment I know about, but I can't reveal it yet. There may be one that comes up from this week. And those kids, some of them, I remember I was covering a recruit. He got a whole film made. I don't even think he ended up at BC. I think he ended up transferring out. He made a whole film that took like a month and a half for them to make. And on Eagle Insider at that time, I think it was still on Eagle Insider, I had, they're like, when is he going to commit? I'm like, I don't know. He told me like 3 weeks ago. And then I reach out to the kid. He's like, yeah, it's almost done. And then it's like 2 more weeks. And some of this stuff can get dragged out. So if you see a Polly Walnuts and I can't talk about it, I apologize. But it's still going to be a fun month. I'm telling you, check it out here on Locked On BC. We're going to have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about over this next month. Now, in our final segment, I want to get into the athlon. One of my favorite articles each year, is when the ACC coaches they speak off the record about what they think about other teams. What do these anonymous coaches have to say about BC? I'll tell you some of the thoughts and why I agree with some. I think some of them are way off, and I'll get into that in just a moment. Welcome back. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm AJ Black, and I want to shout out every first listener who listens to Boston Locked On BC first thing in the morning. Whether you're on your way to work or sitting at your desk opening emails, and you just want to get your BC news, I want to shout you out. And to our everydayers, people who listen to this show every single day, you're the lifeblood of what we do here at Locked On BC. I'm going to shout you out as well. Now, when you're done with this episode, check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. They've got great stuff. It's on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Now, Athlon Sports is a great publication. I love their magazine. If you want to check it out, I wrote the BC preview for this year. That should be hit. I think that's actually in stores now, so you can go to any newsstand and get the latest Athlon article and read what AJ had to say. Now, they also have one of my other favorite features, which is anonymous coaches speaking about teams. Now, you read what some of them say, and there's not some school. Some of it's real good, some of it's not. They've had some really interesting takes on BC in the past. But I wanted to read what some of the things that they had to say about BC now. So I want to shout out Athlon Sports for putting this together. But here's what they had to say about BC. It could be a tricky second season for the staff. I don't think we've disagreed with that. That's fair. That's kind of bland, but sure. Not going to disagree with that. Second, before they were hit by the portal, they were in pretty good shape. And right now they still look like a really efficient run-based offense. They were really effective at working downhill last year. They have to keep that specifically because of the quarterback change. Before they were hit by the portal, who did BC lose in the portal? They didn't lose anybody. So what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. Like, they didn't get hit by the portal at all. They lost Ryan Turner and Tommy Castellanos, who was gone anyways. He left a month before the season ended. So that part was silly. Run-based offense, yeah, they ran more than they passed last year. Will they be that way this year? Who knows? Maybe. They could be. But will they have to do that because of the quarterback change? We'll have to see. This one I thought was really interesting. They said they need Dylan Lonergan to click in that system quickly and also need to build a more consistent defense. They were really opportunistic and created a lot of turnovers, but they're not really deep or talented in one particular unit. So that I thought that was really interesting because whoever this coach is, basically is like, yeah, they got to get Dylan Lonergan in there faster than, quickly. I don't know who's going to be starting next year. Could be Grayson James. It could be Dylan Lonergan. But I thought it was really interesting. The coach was like, yeah, they're going to be better if they get Lonergan in there faster. And then the things about the defense, we've all said that. There's nothing mind-blowing about that. Yeah, their defense was opportunistic last year. They weren't really particularly deep. They had Donovan Isaraku do basically everything. So that's not unfair. Then the final one, they're a lot like Syracuse in that they exceeded the first-year expectations in a rebuild, but they're suffering more losses now. This looks like it could be a season with fewer wins while they build for a more consistent long-term future. Yep, they definitely did what they did last year, just kind of like Syracuse, but they're suffering more losses now. I don't know what that means. They haven't suffered any losses. They really haven't. They are they saying that they lost people into the NFL? They haven't really lost anything. This looks like it'd be a season with fewer wins while they build for a more consistent long-term future. I think they're building for a more long-term, consistent long-term future, but I don't know if that means less wins. I mean, we saw the same thing. We said the same thing last year. I don't know. I don't agree. But my main takeaway for the Athlon piece today, I was kind of disappointed because I was waiting for like a really sizzling hot take, and there really wasn't one. You look at what they say about, UNC, for instance. I wanted to read you one of the North Carolina ones. Honestly, no one really has any idea what to expect on the field when they start this season. How Bill Belichick adjusts to the structure of the college game is going to be crucial. It's less time together with the players, which means less football intelligence. They've really been really vocal about criticizing other programs and how they spend and evaluate. There's talk about how they're going to become an advanced pro level scouting program that influence NIL better. We'll see. We'll do a better job overhaul for the guys in high school recruiting than for Mac Brown, at least until the novelty wears off or Bill gets a bad reputation. So there's some fun ones in there. Syracuse was pretty fun too. But I was like, come on. I wanted a good sizzling take on BC. They didn't really have it. Well, we'll be back again tomorrow. We're going to have Mitch on later this week. And I want to ask you, if you have a question for Mitchell Wolf, I want to do a fun Q&A with Mitch this time. I want you to be able to ask questions of Mitch. You can ask him about schemes. You can ask him about players, whatever you want. Drop it in the comment section below. Hit me up on Twitter at AJBlack247. You can DM me if you want. Don't send it to Mitch because I'm going to be the one kind of running things. So hit me up if you have a question, either at me or DM me. And we'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.